It begins with a ripple, a disturbance on the otherwise calm, glassy surface of Scotland's most mysterious lake. A shadow, long and dark, gliding beneath the water. For centuries, people have whispered about a creature that defies explanation. They call it Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster. Some claim it's a myth, a legend born from drunken fishermen and exaggerated tales. Others swear they've seen it with their own eyes, a serpent-like beast lurking just beneath the waves. But the real question remains, is Nessie real? Or is it one of history's most enduring illusions? To find the answer, we must go deeper into the cold, murky waters of Loch Ness, a place where folklore and science collide. The legend of the Loch Ness Monster is not a modern invention. It stretches back over 1,000 years to a time when Scotland was wild, untamed, and steeped in superstition. The earliest written account comes from the year 565, when Saint Columba, an Irish monk spreading Christianity in the Scottish Highlands, reportedly encountered a beast in the River Ness. According to the story, a man was attacked by a water creature. Columba made the sign of the cross and commanded the beast to retreat, and it did. For the faithful, this was proof of divine power. But for historians, it's the first recorded suggestion of something unusual inhabiting these waters. Was it just a parable, or was it the first real sighting of Nessie? Centuries passed. Folklore blended with whispers of water horses and kelpies, supernatural beings said to drag humans beneath the water. Loch Ness, with its dark, almost black depths, became the perfect setting for such legends. Unlike other lakes, its water is stained by peat from the surrounding hills, making visibility nearly impossible. Even today, divers say entering Loch Ness feels like descending into ink. In such an environment, the imagination runs wild. Every shadow, every wave, every log floating across the surface could become something else. The modern legend of Nessie was born in the 20th century. In 1933, a local newspaper reported that a couple driving along the newly built road beside Loch Ness saw an enormous animal rolling and plunging on the surface. The story captured the public's imagination. Suddenly, Nessie was no longer a folktale, it was a headline. More and more witnesses came forward, describing a large, mysterious creature. Some said it resembled a dragon. Others compared it to a prehistoric plesiosaur, a marine reptile thought to have gone extinct millions of years ago. The possibility that such a creature had survived, hidden in Loch Ness, electrified the world. The following year, 1934, produced what is perhaps the most famous image in cryptozoology, the so-called Surgeon S photograph. It showed a long neck and small head rising above the water, just like a plesiosaur. Newspapers splashed it across their front pages. Nessie fever swept across the globe. Tourists flooded the highlands, hoping for a glimpse of the monster. Scientists, skeptics, and thrill-seekers all descended on the loch. For decades, that photo was considered proof that something extraordinary lurked beneath the surface. But years later, the truth emerged. The photo was a hoax, a model attached to a toy submarine. The world felt deceived. Yet even after the surgeon's photograph was exposed, the legend of Nessie refused to die. And here lies the mystery. Why does Nessie endure? Why, despite debunked evidence and countless failed searches, do so many continue to believe? Part of the answer lies in the nature of Loch Ness itself. It is one of the largest and deepest bodies of freshwater in the British Isles, 23 miles long, more than a mile wide in places, and plunging to depths of over 750 feet. To put it in perspective, Loch Ness holds more water than all the lakes in England and Wales combined. Its depth, combined with the murkiness of its water, creates endless possibilities for what might remain hidden below. For centuries, locals have told stories of massive fish, eels thicker than a man's arm, and strange shapes surfacing briefly before disappearing into the depths. In such an environment, the extraordinary seems possible. But legends are not built on landscapes alone. They need witnesses, and Loch Ness has had plenty. Over the years, thousands of people have reported sightings of Nessie. Some describe a long neck, others a humped back. Some claim to have seen it from boats, others from the shore. In 1938, a man named William Fraser wrote to the Scottish authorities complaining that a monster of considerable dimensions was interfering with his fishing nets. In the 1950s and 60s, tourists snapped grainy photos of unexplained shapes in the water. Each new sighting added fuel to the fire. Skeptics pointed to logs, waves, or swimming deer. Believers saw evidence of a living legend. In 1954, sonar came into play. A fishing boat equipped with sonar equipment detected a large object swimming 480 feet below the surface. The contact moved with speed, suggesting a living creature. This was the first time technology had seemed to confirm the legend. Over the decades, sonar scans would repeatedly reveal mysterious contacts in the loch, large, moving, unexplainable. Were they giant fish, submerged debris, or something else entirely? The search for Nessie has always been a mix of science and spectacle. In the 1960s, the Loch Ness Investigation Bureau was founded, a group dedicated to observing and photographing the loch. They stationed volunteers with cameras along its shores for months at a time. They captured intriguing films of long shapes moving across the water, but none could definitively prove the monster's existence. In the 1970s, Dr. Robert Rines, an American lawyer and inventor, used advanced sonar and underwater photography to probe the depths. His team captured images of what looked like a flipper, giant, diamond-shaped, like that of a plesiosaur. The images electrified the world. Scientific journals published them. Nessie fever surged again. But later, analysis suggested the photos had been enhanced, the shapes exaggerated. Hope gave way once more to doubt. And yet doubt never kills the legend. Instead, it seems to strengthen it. Every failed search, every debunked photo only deepens the mystery. Because if Nessie doesn't exist, why do so many insist they've seen something? Why do sonar readings continue to pick up unexplained objects? Why does Loch Ness, more than any other lake in the world, inspire such fascination? To understand, we must look at the psychology of belief. Humans are drawn to mysteries. We crave the unknown, the possibility that something extraordinary lurks just out of sight. Nessie represents more than a monster. She represents wonder. The idea that the world still holds secrets, that not everything has been mapped, categorized, or explained. In a time when satellites can photograph every inch of the planet, Loch Ness remains an exception, a place where the unknown still thrives. But belief also collides with science. Scientists argue that a breeding population of large creatures could not survive in Loch Ness. The loch simply doesn't have enough food to sustain them. Studies of its ecosystem reveal populations of fish, but not nearly enough to feed a colony of giant reptiles. Furthermore, no carcass, bones, or physical remains have ever been found. If Nessie were real, where is the hard evidence? For skeptics, this is the final word. For believers, it's just part of the mystery. Still, science has not stopped looking. In recent years, researchers have used DNA sampling to study Loch Ness. By collecting water samples and analyzing the genetic material floating within them, scientists can build a picture of all the species living in the loch. The results were fascinating. No evidence of plesiosaurs or giant unknown creatures was found. But there was an unexpected finding: large amounts of eel DNA. Could Nessie simply be a giant eel? It might explain the long snake-like sightings. Eels are known to live in Loch Ness, and in rare cases, they can grow to enormous sizes. But would a giant eel explain every sighting or every sonar reading? The debate continues. What makes Nessie's story unique is not just the evidence, but the cultural phenomenon it has created. Nessie is more than a cryptid. She is a symbol of Scotland, as iconic as bagpipes, kilts, or castles. The Loch Ness Monster attracts millions of visitors each year, fueling a tourism industry worth tens of millions of pounds. Hotels, cruises, museums, and gift shops all thrive on the legend. For many, the truth of Nessie matters less than the story itself. The mystery is the attraction. And yet, despite the commercial side, the legend retains its power. Because Nessie is not just about tourism or folklore or science, Nessie is about the human imagination. She is the shadow in the water, the ripple without explanation, the question that refuses to be answered. Is she real, or is she just a reflection of our desire to believe? To uncover the truth, we must go deeper. Deeper into the loch, deeper into the eyewitness accounts, deeper into the science that seeks to solve the riddle. The answers may surprise you, or they may reveal that the greatest mystery of all is not in Loch Ness, but within ourselves. The legend of the Loch Ness Monster is far from finished. In fact, it may be more alive today than ever. And as long as people keep searching, as long as ripples break the surface of the loch, the question will remain: is Nessie real? The 1970s brought a golden age of Nessie hunts. Technology was advancing, cameras were improving, sonar was becoming more precise. Enthusiasts around the world were convinced that proof was only a matter of time. Among them was Dr. Robert Rines, whose fascination with Loch Ness turned into a decades-long obsession. In 1972, Rines and his team used sophisticated sonar alongside underwater cameras. They deployed strobe lights and high-resolution lenses in the dark waters of the loch. What they captured sent shockwaves through the scientific community. One of the photographs appeared to show the outline of a flipper, massive, diamond-shaped, eerily similar to that of a plesiosaur. Newspapers around the world published the photo. For many, this was the breakthrough. Finally, a glimpse of the monster that had eluded humanity for so long. But as always with Nessie, the excitement came with doubt. The images were blurry, the shapes indistinct. Critics argued that sediment stirred up by the lights had created misleading shadows. Over time, further analysis suggested the famous flipper photo had been enhanced, its edges sharpened to look more convincing. What had first appeared as groundbreaking evidence soon fell into the category of maybe. It was enough to keep the legend alive, but not enough to close the case. Throughout the 1980s and 90s, the searches intensified. In 1987, a massive operation called Operation Deepscan was launched. 24 boats, equipped with the latest sonar technology, swept across the loch in formation, scanning the depths with unprecedented precision. The world watched closely. If Nessie was there, surely this would reveal her. The results: several sonar contacts showed large, moving objects deep below the surface, too large to be ordinary fish. But again, the data was inconclusive. The objects vanished before they could be identified. To skeptics, it was nothing more than anomalies or debris. To believers, it was proof that something big, alive, and elusive was still down there. Eyewitness sightings continued. In 1993, a tourist named Gary Campbell saw something in the water that defied explanation. He later became the official keeper of the Loch Ness Monster Sightings Register, compiling hundreds of reports. Some accounts are dramatic: large humps rolling across the loch, a long neck emerging briefly from the waves. Others are fleeting glimpses, ripples, shadows, wakes that appear without boats to cause them. In each case, the pattern is the same: just enough detail to intrigue, never enough to confirm. The mystery deepened with the arrival of digital cameras and video recorders. grainy home videos began to circulate, showing dark shapes moving across the loch's surface. Some were quickly debunked as waves, birds, or floating logs, but others remain unexplained to this day. The internet gave new life to the legend, spreading videos and photos to millions worldwide. The Loch Ness Monster was no longer just a Scottish phenomenon. It was global. But what exactly are people seeing? To answer that, we need to consider the unique conditions of Loch Ness. The loch is notorious for optical illusions. Because of its long, narrow shape and steep hills, wind patterns often create strange wave formations known as seiches. These can look like humps rising and falling on the water's surface. Light reflecting off the loch can distort shapes, especially on misty days. Floating debris, logs, branches, or even swimming deer can easily be mistaken for something monstrous. And then there are mirages, atmospheric conditions that bend light in strange ways, making distant objects appear closer, larger, or distorted. In other words, Loch Ness itself conspires to create mysteries. Yet even when explanations are offered, many sightings remain stubbornly resistant to logic. Some witnesses are trained observers, police officers, soldiers, scientists, who insist they saw something alive, something extraordinary. Why would they lie? Why would so many risk ridicule to claim an encounter? Could they all be mistaken? Or is there truly something hiding in the depths? The scientific community has largely remained skeptical. Biologists argue that for a large creature to survive in Loch Ness, there must be a breeding population. One animal cannot sustain a legend for centuries. There would need to be dozens, perhaps hundreds. Yet the loch doesn't have the food supply to support such a population. Studies of fish stocks show numbers too low to feed a colony of giant predators. And still, sonar readings and eyewitness accounts persist. The contradiction lies at the heart of the mystery. Theories about Nessie's identity are as diverse as the sightings themselves. The most famous is the plesiosaur theory, the idea that a prehistoric marine reptile somehow survived extinction and adapted to freshwater life in Loch Ness. It's a thrilling possibility, but highly unlikely. Plesiosaurs needed to surface for air, meaning they would be spotted frequently. They were also cold-blooded, making survival in the chilly waters of Scotland improbable. And most importantly, the fossil record suggests they disappeared 65 million years ago. Another theory suggests Nessie could be a giant sturgeon. Sturgeons are massive fish with ridged backs and elongated bodies. Some species can grow over 20 feet long. While sturgeons are not common in Scotland, they have been found in its waters before. A giant sturgeon surfacing could easily be mistaken for a monster. Others propose the idea of giant eels. DNA studies have confirmed large amounts of eel DNA in Loch Ness. While most eels are small, some can grow to enormous sizes. A supersized eel twisting through the water might account for many snake-like sightings. More exotic theories abound. Some suggest Nessie is a surviving species of long-necked seal, unknown to science. Others think the monster is not biological at all, but supernatural. A spirit of the loch tied to ancient folklore about kelpies and water horses. A few even propose time slips, portals, or interdimensional phenomena. While these ideas are far from scientific, they reflect the enduring allure of the mystery. But if Nessie is real, why has no one captured definitive proof? Part of the answer lies in Loch Ness itself. Its vast size and depth make it almost impossible to search fully. Its water is dark with peat, reducing visibility to just a few feet. Even the most advanced sonar can miss objects in its steep, rocky bottom. The loch has countless caves, crevices, and trenches where something could hide. In many ways, searching Loch Ness is like searching space, vast, dark, and filled with unknowns. And there is another factor, human psychology. When people go to Loch Ness, they expect to see something unusual. Their brains are primed for it. A floating log becomes a hump. A bird diving becomes a neck. Our minds fill in gaps with the extraordinary. This doesn't mean all sightings are illusions, but it does explain why the legend persists so powerfully. Nessie is not just in the loch, she's in our imagination. In 2003, the BBC conducted one of the largest modern searches. Using 600 sonar beams and satellite tracking, they scanned the entire loch. Their conclusion: no monster. Nothing of unusual size was detected. The BBC declared the mystery solved, but believers were not convinced. They argued that the search, while extensive, was not foolproof. After all, many sonar contacts had been made in the past, only to vanish. And so, the legend lived on. 15 years later, in 2018, scientists conducted the environmental DNA study of Loch Ness. Every living organism sheds DNA into the water: skin, scales, waste. By analyzing samples, researchers can identify every species in the loch. The results ruled out plesiosaurs, sharks, and giant catfish. But they did reveal something curious: the overwhelming presence of eel DNA. Was this the explanation? Could Nessie be nothing more than a very large eel? For some, it was the final answer. For others, it was just another twist. Because even if Nessie is a giant eel, the mystery remains. Why do so many sightings describe a long neck, a massive back, or multiple humps? Not all the evidence fits neatly into one explanation. At the heart of the mystery lies one truth: Nessie endures because she cannot be disproven. Science can cast doubt, but it cannot erase the thousands of testimonies, the sonar anomalies, the blurry photos, the videos, the footprints of a story that refuses to fade. For every explanation, there is a counter-argument. For every skeptic, there is a believer. Loch Ness sits at the crossroads of fact and folklore, a place where the rational and the mysterious overlap. And so the search continues. Tourists line the loch with cameras, scientists launch new expeditions, local residents scan the waters daily. Each ripple, each unexplained wake renews the hope. Perhaps the next photo, the next sonar scan, the next dive will be the one. Perhaps proof lies just beneath the surface, waiting to be revealed. But maybe the truth about Nessie is not in Loch Ness at all. Maybe the truth is in us, in our longing for wonder, in our refusal to let go of mystery. Nessie is a mirror, reflecting our deepest desire, that the world is not fully explained, that somewhere in the shadows of nature the unknown still waits. The Loch Ness Monster may be real, or she may be nothing more than myth. But either way, she is immortal. And yet the question lingers, haunting the loch as much as the mist that clings to its waters. If Nessie is just a story, why does the evidence never fully vanish? Why do the sightings never stop? Why does the monster live on, generation after generation? The answer might lie in the most recent investigations, in strange new sonar contacts, in the latest unexplained videos. The story is not over. In fact, it may be on the verge of a new chapter. Because even today, with all our technology, all our science, Loch Ness still guards its secret. And as long as it does, the legend of Nessie will never die. The dawn mist hangs heavy over the waters of Loch Ness. A tourist boat glides silently across the surface, passengers scanning the horizon with cameras ready. The loch is calm, its dark waters stretching endlessly into the distance. And then, just for a moment, a ripple, a disturbance, something large moving beneath. Gasps, shouts, cameras clicking. Was it a wave, a fish, or was it the monster itself? The cycle continues, just as it has for centuries. In the modern age of drones, satellites, and high-definition cameras, you would think the mystery of Nessie should already be solved. And yet, the legend only grows stronger. In 2019, new headlines shocked the world. Researchers claimed the monster might indeed be a giant eel. The DNA evidence supported it, but the public was not satisfied. Because giant eels are not legendary. They do not capture the imagination the way a prehistoric survivor does. Nessie is more than science. She is story, myth, and identity. The most intriguing part is how the mystery refuses to die. Take the year 2021, for instance. A local enthusiast named Ronald Mackenzie, operating a tour boat, captured sonar images of a large, unexplained object deep beneath the loch. The image clearly showed something long and solid, much bigger than the known fish species of Loch Ness. The sonar operator insisted it was real, not a technical glitch. Once again, newspapers exploded with the possibility that Nessie was back. The photos circulated worldwide. Experts debated endlessly. A giant fish, a seal, a drifting object, or something truly unknown. No one could agree. And then came 2023. Another wave of reports surfaced, this time from drones flying over the loch. Footage showed dark shapes moving under the water, their outlines difficult to interpret. Was it a school of fish? Light trickery? Or was it something larger, something that fit the shape of the monster we all expect to see? Believers declared victory. Skeptics shook their heads. But the headlines had already spread across the internet, reigniting the age-old debate. Perhaps the most important point is this. Loch Ness is one of the most monitored lakes in the world. Dozens of webcams are set up along its shores, live streaming day and night. Thousands of tourists watch the waters every day. And still, the sightings come. This suggests something strange is happening. Not necessarily a monster, but phenomena that continue to defy simple explanation. In an age when mysteries are supposed to be solved, Loch Ness remains unsolved. But why? Why does Nessie endure when other myths have faded? Part of the answer lies in her timing. Nessie became famous in the 1930s, just as mass media was exploding. Newspapers, radio, and film gave the legend international exposure. The surgeon's photograph became one of the most famous images of the 20th century. Even after it was exposed as a hoax, the image was burned into our collective imagination. Children grew up with it. Films, books, and documentaries spread it further. Nessie became bigger than the truth. She became an icon. And icons don't need proof to survive. They thrive on uncertainty. Every unexplained photo, every sonar blip, every ripple on the loch becomes fuel for the fire. The absence of proof becomes part of the legend. If Nessie cannot be found, maybe it is because she is too clever, too ancient, too magical. The lack of evidence doesn't weaken the story, it strengthens it. But beyond the cultural and psychological, there is still a nagging possibility that science hasn't fully closed the case. Loch Ness is an extreme environment, with depths over 750 feet and trenches even deeper. Its water is opaque, impenetrable even to powerful lights. It is riddled with caves and rocky outcrops. Some scientists argue that if a large unknown animal were to survive anywhere, Loch Ness is one of the few places it could. Cryptozoologists, the researchers who study hidden or unknown animals, often point to discoveries of new species in recent decades. Giant squid, once thought to be legend, were proven real. The coelacanth, a fish believed extinct for 65 million years, was discovered alive in the 20th century. If those creatures could survive in the depths of oceans, why not something unusual in Loch Ness? It may not be a plesiosaur, but perhaps a species of large fish or amphibian, not yet identified. Yet there is a darker twist. Some scientists argue that the monster might have once been real, but is now gone. Perhaps a large animal lived in Loch Ness centuries ago, giving rise to the earliest legends, but died out long ago. What remains is only the echo of memory, magnified by imagination. In this view, Nessie is a ghost, not of the supernatural, but of biology, an extinct creature kept alive only in human stories. And still, the hunt continues. Every year, new expeditions arrive, equipped with drones, sonar, infrared cameras and submersibles. Each time the same result, tantalizing clues, never proof. But would proof really end the story? If a carcass were discovered tomorrow, would Nessie's mystery be solved? Or would people simply say the real monster is still out there, hiding? Because perhaps what people want is not the answer, but the question itself. There is something primal about the Loch Ness Monster. It taps into our deepest instincts, our fear of the unknown depths, our awe of nature's power, our longing for wonder. It reminds us that even in the modern age, there are still shadows we cannot penetrate. So, is Nessie real? The evidence is inconclusive. Science leans toward no, but the legend is larger than evidence. Nessie is real in the minds of millions, real in the culture of Scotland, real in the endless stream of photos, videos and testimonies, real in the tourism industry that thrives on her, and maybe, just maybe, real in the waters of Loch Ness itself. The answer may never come. Perhaps Nessie is an illusion, a collective dream shaped by fog and waves. Perhaps she is a creature hiding in trenches we have yet to fully explore. Or perhaps she is something stranger still, a phenomenon that defies categories. The truth may be lost forever in the loch's dark depths. But one thing is certain. As long as the mist rolls across the highlands, as long as the waters of Loch Ness remain still and mysterious, people will continue to watch. They will come with cameras, with sonar, with hope. They will tell stories to their children. They will point to ripples and wonder, and the monster will live on. In the end, maybe the question is not, is Nessie real, but why do we need her to be? Because Nessie is more than a monster. She is a symbol of mystery itself, a reminder that the world is bigger than us, that there are still places where science and imagination meet, that even in the 21st century, not everything has been explained away. So the next time you stand on the shore of Loch Ness, staring into the black waters, remember this: the truth may be closer than you think, or it may be nothing more than shadows. But either way, the story of Nessie will ripple through time, as eternal and elusive as the monster herself.